Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you here with us and share with you about the Minnesota Parks Artist in Residence Program, or MNPAiR. My name is Jen Krava. I'm the Director of Learning, Grants, and Research at Forecast Public Art, and have had the great pleasure of partnering with the Minnesota DNR, Met Council Parks, and the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission to launch and foster the MNPAiR pilot project. Today, you're going to hear from members of the project team, some artists and host site representatives who will share some common themes across the projects. We'll also have time at the end for questions and conversation. If you do have a question that you'd like to ask, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll make sure we get to those at the end. We are recording this webinar and we'll share it out with anyone who has registered, so you will get a recording of this in a couple of weeks. Thank you again for joining us. With that, I'm going to hand it over to my teammate, Mallory Rukhsana Nezam.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I am so happy to welcome you here to celebrate MNPAiR and to talk about what this truly unique program has accomplished. So I'm Mallory Rukhsana Nezam. I am part of the Forecast Public Art team. We had the honor of helping to manage and bring to life this great project. I am going to kind of guide us to understand what MNPAiR was and some of the impacts of the program, why we think it's so special. So on the next slide, we will see all of the artists who were in residence in this program. This program was, of course, importantly made possible by the Legacy Amendment. And we can see that we have about 12 artists in residence embedded in 13 different parks and trails across the state. Next slide. These are the key partners who helped to make this program possible in this residency across the entire state. It was a collaboration between the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources Parks and Trails Division, the Metropolitan Council's Metropolitan Regional Parks, and the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission. And I think we've got some more of those partners here today. Next slide. Here you see a map with little blue pins that show you all of the sites where our artists were embedded in partnership with the Parks and Trails staff around the state. And you can see that we've got artists really far and wide, working with all different kinds of sites, both from rural to urban sites. In the next slide, you see that we had this wonderful opportunity to try something called a pilot program. And a pilot program is designed thoroughly based on research and experience, but really it is sort of a test of an idea in a new context. And a pilot has this learning by doing ethos that was definitely part of this process. And a pilot is also the first time that we're doing something. So it's really kind of a unique opportunity to learn a lot through doing. The setup of this project was a 12-month opportunity for an artist to be embedded in a park or trail system. They had about 20 hours a week on average embedded in the park, just to kind of give you a sense of how kind of deep the relationship was. The artist had a stipend of about $40,000. They had a materials budget, as you see here, and they were also part of a cohort, which meant that the artists met regularly with each other to kind of troubleshoot, to learn together, to hear from others around the country who've gone through similar experiences. In the next slide, we'll share a little bit more about what is this unique structure of embedding an artist in residence. There are a lot of different ways that parks work with artists, that government works with artists, but this pilot program of the residency embedded in the system is a little bit different. And this meant that the artists spent their time really deeply researching and engaging with the park, trailer park system and its communities. And then they used that research phase to develop the work that they did. And it's a little different from more traditional residencies in that it focused on artists really as partners and as ambassadors for their beloved parks, contributing not just artworks, but also ideas. In the next slide, we see that there was also a thematic focus for this residency, which was belonging, which I think was also really just a really great fit for many of our artists and many of our sites. And this then became, a focal point for all of the activities that took place. On the next slide, we can see just a high-level snapshot of the timeline, what happened during this program. So there was actually a very robust selection process. We received hundreds of applications, really showing great demand for this project. Then we had kind of an introduction, getting to know each other phase. And then at the beginning of 2025, that's when our artists started to begin their creative works. And then now we're here telling the story of all that happened. So I'm now going to invite the rest of the core team in to introduce themselves. So I've already introduced myself, but my role was really to support the cohort experience, to move the artists through that. As I'm a national practitioner who focuses on artist residencies in government, and so wanted to support that part of the learning of the process. And I'm going to invite Jen Krava.
Hi again, everybody. Again, my name is Jen Krava. I'm the Director of Learning Grants and Research here at Forecast Public Art. I have had the great pleasure of leading the Forecast team in this project. And there have been so many great moments over the last, year that we've been working on this. But one that I think about often, and I guess it's maybe more general, but just thinking about how the artists have built partnerships in the parks, and not only with the parks, but the community members outside of the parks. It's been really awesome to see those relationships being built by the artists, but connecting the parks to the community members as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hawona Sullivan Janzen, and I am part of the Forecast team. I'm a public artist who spends most of my time doing government work. You might remember efforts around the Dale Street Bridge over Interstate 94 and the work that Forecast has done with the city of Bloomington developing a plan. I was a part of all those things. For the MNPAiR project, I serve as the mentor for the cohort of artists for this year.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anne Jin Soo Preston, and I'm part of the Forecast team, and I am the evaluator for the project. You'll be seeing some of the evaluation later, I think at the beginning of January is what we're hoping, or maybe even this month still. Um, and I was had the pleasure of riding along with the whole project as it was a pilot, and we were really trying to look at all kinds of things from the beginning portion of the selection all the way to the end. And I think my favorite moment actually of the project was we had a celebration in August, bringing as many of the folks that we could together and just having a really deep conversation and folks reflecting on their experience. So that was my favorite.
Hi all, I'm Ellie Hohulin. I work at the Met Council and was the representative for the council for this project. I would say that my favorite memory was going to one of Ephraim Mansour's events in Dakota County and just going as a participant and not anyone there knowing that I was one of the core team members, and really having a wonderful experience talking to other community members about just being able to see artists in parks. And that was kind of the reason that they were coming out that day. So yeah, really excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Lars Erdahl. I work with the DNR, specifically with the Parks and Trails Legacy programs at the DNR. And I had the pleasure of being on the core team coordinating and planning these efforts. And I think my favorite moment was actually, Anne already kind of stole it from me, but it was that August 15th gathering where all the artists or most of the artists came together, and it was fun to be kind of in a room together and feel that energy and creativity and that intensity of kind of the things that they had already done and that they were kind of still wrapping up at that point. So I think that gathering was a highlight.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Luisa Cichowski. I'm a Conservation Corps member serving with the Minnesota DNR, the Metropolitan Council, and the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission. I've gotten to be involved in this project in a few ways throughout, and some of my favorite memories are just visiting the parks. I got to interview a few of the artists and just hearing about their different approaches to public engagement, and then really seeing how the community responded at their events. People were super enthusiastic to be there, and that was really sweet to see.
Good afternoon. I'm Renee Mattson. I'm the Executive Director at the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission. It's been a great project to be part of, and it's exciting today to be able to share with all of you what we've been doing for the last year. And for sure, my favorite memory was going to Lake Brophy Park to watch the mosaic work underway one day and watching a little girl come over from the playground with her grandmother. She had fully intended on being at their wonderful playground and saw what was happening with the mosaics and decided that instead she wanted to do that today. So it was a wonderful representation of what this work was intended to do, which was to bring new people into the parks and develop creative ways of showing art and getting people involved. So today we're excited to share the story about a truly special collaboration, one that brought artists and parks staff and our broader communities together. By working together across agencies, each operating differently, we discovered creative solutions and sparked innovation that would not have been possible by one agency alone. To highlight how impactful this project has been for those who participated, we're going to share some quotes from artists and park staff that call out aspects of the work that they found particularly meaningful, starting with this quote from a MNPAiR artist. This was not a solo experience, unlike previous public artworks where I designed and completed commissions in my studio, showing up only to install or deliver the final pieces. The residency involved a team of both park team members and the larger DNR team, representing an opportunity to not only learn about the park, but also to explore how art could be used to teach about Tetagooch State Park, leading visitors to have a sense of belonging when they visited. The MNPAiR project, as Mallory had said, was a pilot initiative, which means it's our first time trying something like this, and the first time anything like MNPAiR has taken place in Minnesota, or really anywhere else that we know of. With pilots come both exciting opportunities and unique challenges. We learned the value of thinking creatively and the importance of supporting project champions who believe anything is possible. It's these kinds of collaborations that demonstrate how new ideas can flourish when we work together. The funding that made this project possible is also unique to Minnesota. The Parks and Trails Fund of the Clean Water, Land, and Legacy Amendment is shared between the three agencies, with 1% of the Parks and Trails Fund set aside each biennium to be used for projects that benefit parks and trails and the visitors to them across all three systems. Examples of these are research initiatives, marketing, and now the wonderful MNPAiR project. One of the most meaningful outcomes was how art deepened visitors' connections to the parks. Through the MNPAiR program, the public was invited to experience what it feels like to create art in a park setting, which is described here by a park staff member. Supporting a weaving event, watching the artists guide participants in discovering their own creative potential and process, watching new visitors and communities of all ages explore a new space, brought together by art that was culturally meaningful, creating memories of a park space in a new way. Many people came to parks with certain expectations, maybe a hike, a picnic, or simply enjoying nature. But this time, visitors were encouraged to actively participate in making something lasting. This experience was not only special for participants, but also for park staff who saw firsthand how deep and long-lasting these connections can be and actively championed the projects as described here by a park staff member. The impact on park visitors was both visible and powerful. Families and individuals came together to create art, make new friends, and try something new. This hands-on, place-based learning deepened the connection between creativity and nature for many attendees. Visitors also frequently mentioned how relaxing it was to simply sit, slow down, and enjoy the parks while making art. That kind of stillness and presence is rare, and it was meaningful to see people rediscover it in these shared outdoor spaces. Several subgroups have even continued meeting after the events, proof that the project helped forge lasting bonds. Thanks to the outreach efforts of our artists, we saw people of all ages participate, from children and young adults to adults and retirees. This broad engagement is one of the program's greatest strengths, and will feature examples later in the presentation. Having artists embedded in our parks produced an environment of creativity, which was well stated by a staffer at a host park. I have never been an artistic person. I have more of an analytical mind. The artists taught me to view the world in my workspace differently, and how to present our public spaces differently to our visitors. My hope is that my organization can take what I have learned from the artists to change how we engage with our stakeholders, not to be so strictly governmental, but open up and interact in different ways. When government teams, whether state or local, work closely with artists, they start to think and work differently, discovering new ways to approach projects and even finding opportunities to incorporate art into future work. Exposure to art helps us see the transformative power it has, not just for individuals, but for whole communities. From the park's perspective, these partnerships were ways in which to reach a new audience. When artists and parks work together as true partners, the impact can be exponential. By respecting and supporting artists, giving them time, resources, and the space to create meaningful work focused on belonging, we saw incredible results. The artists were central to the project, not an afterthought, and the work they produced was deeply impactful because they were paid fairly and given the freedom to work over a longer span of time, a distinction very much appreciated by this artist. My previous experience working as a landscape artist helped the success of my MNPAiR project. I felt equipped to work inside the constraints of a government organization. I also recognize the opportunities that working on behalf of the government might afford you that you might not otherwise have working as an independent artist. Particularly in gaining access to governmental resources and professional networks, as well as forming connections between governmental departments and with tribal nations. Artists bring many skills to these partnerships, not just creativity, but also event coordination, grant writing, relationship building, designing site-specific projects, working with elders and students, landscape architecture, education, and program design. Their multi-dimensional talents are activated in these embedded residencies, enriching both our parks and our community. By embracing collaboration and creativity, we're showing how parks can be places for everyone, not just for recreation, but for making connections and exploring new ideas, creating lasting memories. We thank you for being part of this journey, and we're really looking forward to sharing more about the impact of this project with you today.
Thanks, Renee. So I'm going to share my screen to share a video that we created to talk about this pilot program and make just short clips that people can understand a little bit more about the work that was done over the course of the past year. So special thanks to Carol Critchley from the Met Council who put this together, and all the artists and host sites who were a part of this. So I'll go ahead and share my screen with this video.
MNPAiR is a project that brought together some regional parks with some state parks with the idea that they would place artists in residence in each of the different host sites. And together they would develop a cohort exploring belonging together with the parks, and then create works inspired by the connections they had found and by the ideas of what belonging means for those different communities.
Part of one of the murals, I included text that people wrote on their pieces of art. So like actual quotes from them, or like the collages with their art. So it's like they're being included, they're being pulled into what was created. It's not just me, I'm just a facilitator.
Parks are for everyone, as we know, and so how can we utilize the very creative thinking of artists and the really innovative ways that they work to bring more people into the parks, but also help them feel like they belong there, and that they're meant to be there and that the park is for them.
Art brings kind of a different way of thinking or knowing about things, and I think kind of combining the beauty and creativity of art with the beauty and kind of the surroundings of nature and the diversity of those things together, I think kind of creates a holistic approach to kind of experiencing the outdoors and outdoor recreation.
Art plays a huge role in quality of life. It's not just a nice to have, it's something that for centuries has been a part of the human experience, and to incorporate that into the work that we're doing in planning, in parks, with the council as a whole is really important and helps to tell the story of what the Metropolitan Council and the rest of the park system is doing.
When people make art, they take ownership of it. And so when they make something, they're really proud and want to display, and they show people, and even if they think they did a terrible job, they're still like, hey, I made this. So it's this way of pulling people in and getting people to participate. And when people participate, they take that ownership, and then that ownership becomes a return trip to that park.
For us, we took that on as how do we get more people connected to the park? And how do we do that through art? So we did a lot of things in their visitor center to open up the space and bring people into the space. And so we did art with the Boys and Girls Club, and then we took photos of that and put it on the wall. So they're like literally connected to that space through their artwork.
I think art really provides a different experience for park users. It brings people into play and experience parks in a way they've never thought of before. And each of our projects, our artists were so different. I think it really sings to people, and the art experience has been so positive for people. They're really looking at parks and the interactions in them in a way they've never done before, and I think that this really will continue to enhance the experience as people come to look and show people the art that they've created in these parks.
To have artists spread across the state, from county parks to rural parks to urban parks, offers this really wonderful exchange of different places, different cultures, and artists working in really different contexts that can learn from each other. And we get to see the way that they're able to impact a variety of different kinds of communities and different kinds of systems.
Art is important in our lives, and nature is important in our lives to be healthy human beings, happy human beings, and I feel like those two just overlap.
I think that's probably always the fun part about teaching and doing these little workshops that we've been doing, is you get to see this light bulb, and the light bulb lights up. And when that light bulb lights up, no matter how many times you see the light bulb light up, it's always a surprise. It's always fun because you don't know when the light bulb's actually going to start glowing.
Hello, we're Monica and Nicole, and we worked with Lake Bemidji State Park through the MNPAiR project.
We live in the Twin Cities, and so it was an exciting thing to go up to Bemidji every time we went to stay. So we stayed in the park during our visits. In the winter months, we stayed in one of the little dry cabins, and in the warmer months, we stayed in our tent. And by we, I mean our whole family got to be artists in residence. We were kind of a family artist in residence, which we thoroughly enjoyed. One of the reasons we picked Lake Bemidji State Park was because of the bog. And on the slide, you can see the pitcher plants, which are one of 4 carnivorous plants native to Minnesota. And each season that we got to go visit the park at, and just watching all of the nature change throughout the seasons was a really special part of being able to stay at the park.
While in residence, we did a lot of events and workshops, 30 approximately in total events and workshops, and with over about 1,000 participants. So one of our biggest event days was Free Park Day in June. It's a day when admission to the park, no vehicle permits are required, so it's completely free to enter the park and experience it. And so we held events on that day to reduce the barrier to entry. So one of our favorites was free family portraits. And so we had folks from all over the area come in. Some people were prepared and they came on purpose, and some people were just walking through the park and enjoying it, or some people were just camping at the park. And they came over and we took their picture for free, and then we put it on a website so that they could download it and print it if they wanted to, or save it to their phones, or whatever they wanted to use it for. That was a really lovely experience for all of us. We also connected with the local food co-op in Bemidji for that day, and had one of their chefs come in and teach folks how to cook over a campfire. And then we also brought in the local art center in Bemidji to host a story slam, which is a competitive storytelling event. And we had a lot of really great participation there. The photo to the right is of a workshop that we did where we taught visitors about 2 different carnivorous plants that are visible in the bog at Lake Bemidji State Park, the roundleaf sundew and the purple pitcher plant. So this is one of those. We also did a lot of other workshops where there was a lot of participation, including, lantern making, nature making. We partnered with the library, the local Headwaters Music Center, the Boys and Girls Club, the DAC, lots of different organizations to make workshops possible, including
going into most of the schools in the area. We went in and taught lessons about graphic design, about art, and how Mother Nature is the world's best graphic designer, how she can show us beautiful examples of contrast and camouflage whenever we look. From those exercises, we took the students' ideas and made stickers that were available for free at the ranger station. We also made temporary tattoos that were also available for free based on the kids' designs and what they loved about the parks and about nature in the Bemidji area. This rainbow snake heart was a temporary tattoo that was one of our favorites. We were at the park during the wind event, which left a very lasting impression on anybody that was present that night. And as we were going around the campgrounds, checking in with people, seeing if people needed things, we met this wonderful group of friends and families at Lavinia Campground. And the little girls had taken this tattoo and they had cut them in half. And then they had put the halves on each other's arms. So that when they stood in a circle and they held their hands together in the middle, they had a whole circle of connected snake rainbow tattoos. That was a really special moment for us to just randomly encounter after such kind of a, traumatic event. We also went in and worked with the local art club at the high school, and that's who we had help us design the art pack patches.
which are in the upper right-hand corner.
Mm-hmm.
And then seen here printed on the art packs. So we created 2 art packs that are available to check out for free at the visitor center, along with the other packs that are available to check out for free at the visitor center. So this is just in addition to those. The art packs have art materials that are very portable. They all fit into this backpack. So you check out the backpack and you can go and walk around the park and make art. With that, we also had the park install 4 new benches. And these benches transition from a bench to a table so that you can sit down and, as Monica likes to say, have a snack, make some art. And it's really convenient. And then you just flip it back up and carry on with your hike.
We also did a lot of improvements on the visitor center, and a lot of that was done with the help of the Friends of Lake Bemidji State Park. We were able to connect with lots of different organizations in this capacity as well. One of the biggest ones was meeting with and kind of joining the Bemidji Carvers Club, and they were able to donate and loan carvings to replace empty spots in the visitor center that had been left behind when taxidermy had been removed. We also were able to update the book selection, the library selection that's available in the visitor center and the Trails Center, so that things were a little bit more relevant, so that we were able to include more books by local authors and to just increase the number of children's books available overall. We also created these 3 pieces of art that are now hanging up in the 4, excuse me, for one for each season. So as we were visiting, we were taking photos the whole time, and then we took specific colors out of the photos and made rainbows for each season that are directly from colors found in the park during those seasons. So there you can see the pieces up in the Trail Center, and then below you can see some of the books and a new shelf that we were able to install. We also did a lot of rearranging, a lot of photos went up that we took during our workshops and events in the park, and we were able to update some of the game boards on the tables as well.
And we like to say that Mother Nature is our greatest collaborator. So these are some of the animals and plants and natural structures that collaborated with us during our residency. And it was lovely meeting all of them and working with all of the park staff. And we really loved the experience.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Nicole and Monica. Next, we have Sam Zimmerman, who was embedded in Chattagooch State Park, part of the Department of Natural Resources. So Sam is next. Sam, you're on mute.
Miigwech, I'm still waking up. A lot of travel today. So, bonjour, good afternoon. Sam Zimmerman, Indigenous, Jawanugizik, Ojibwe Bong, Auntie Jock and Dunham. I've shared with you my name is Sam Zimmerman. My Ojibwe name is Jawanugizik. I'm a Grand Portage direct descendant. When I applied for the MNPAiR, artists were asked to select rank three parks. I put Chattagooch number 1, Chattagooch number 2, Chattagooch number 3. I actually reside in the North Shore. Grand Portage is at the very far tip of the North Shore before the Canadian border. It's a very special place. It's the North Shore is the land of my childhood and my adulthood, and so it's quite an incredible place to be embedded in. And so, similar to what Monica and Nicole have shared, was looking at the relationship to initiate conversations, especially along the North Shore. There are a lot of North Shore communities that remember before Chattagooch existed as a state park. I found out when I began to research and develop relationships with the members of Tetagooch that I'm actually older than the park, and I still have some feelings about that. Um, but the opportunity to be embedded, to allow not only for myself to feel like a sense of belonging to Tetagooch, but was to how to restore relationships for the North Shore communities to Tetagooch. It is a heavily visited state park where 90% of the visitors never leave the visitor center, where the predominant square acreage, the massive size of Tetagooch is actually away from Lake Superior. And so to think about and working with the team there about how to get visitors to have a sense of belonging, that it's not just a rest stop along the North Shore, to use the restroom or to visit the gift shop or to see Lake Superior, but to actually have a sense of belonging and wanting to return to Tetagooch over and over again. And that really answering those questions and asking those questions, answering those questions, really allowed for us to work in concert, not only with the state park team there, that was an incredible team to partner with, but also the regional DNR team to come alongside and support. And then also working with community partners like the Friends of Tetagooch State Park, Silver Bay Public Schools, the Silver Bay Library, Grand Portage Tribal Community, to really set up a calendar of events that would welcome and encourage people to visit the park and to continue to come to the park. Before, as though I'm an artist, I look at art as a way to teach, whether it's to teach about conservation and natural efforts, but also about teaching about a place, teaching about the relatives that encompass that place, whether it's the animals, bird, fish, or plant relatives, to teach about the history of the land, and those who come before us, those who will come after us. One of the joys of this being embedded was to develop a relationship with the Silver Bay schools. And that was to partner with their sixth grade band of students, the groups, to have them come to the park and to learn about art, learn about Ojibwe culture, to learn about the park itself, and the geography and the history, and how the park changes during the season. And sixth graders ask some really great questions and have some really great energy. And this partnership actually led to students coming to learn about art, to create art during their art lessons, the teacher sharing art, Lisa McComb sharing their art, and it culminated in a student exhibition in the park. So now children and their families could see their own art in the park. And here we are. I don't know what I was looking at, but here we are, the teacher and I, Lisa and I, the parents came out, and there were community members from Silver Bay, which is about 8 miles away, who had never come to an event at Tetagooch, even though it's so close to the community. I put a link there if anyone would like to see it at a later point, but to see like kids have their artwork, and it was such an incredible event. It was a very cold event. It was a very cold evening. Then to, as I was embedded in the park, working with the DNR team and the regional team, was to have opportunities to have artist and author talks, to engage the Silver Bay community and the larger community, to come talk about Tetagooch, talk about my own art. And I shared from my first book about stories and asked them to engage and share their own stories about Tetagooch, me being the guinea pig and modeling it for them. And they got to share their thoughts and feelings about Tetagooch and its importance to the community, importance to the North Shore, and start to see some of the pieces that would later on become part of the permanent public installation. And it was, so it was it was larger than just the DNR. It really was the local community, the municipal coming alongside as partners. And it was really this residency and the outcomes of the residency. I was just, I heard another artist in the video speak to being a facilitator. That was part of being an ambassador to Tetagooch, was having that mantle of being able to facilitate conversations and to create opportunities, which was really exciting. Through the residency, sharing not only the animal relatives or bird relatives that I experienced when I was embedded in the park. In this particular case, is a red squirrel, a McGizzy, a bald eagle. In the background of this piece is actually Shovel Point, is a very distinct geographic feature. At one time, parts of Tetigooch were considered some of the oldest exposed rocks. Not only in the hemisphere, but in the world. That has since been disproved, but it has very unique geography. And these original pieces that came out actually have become, in one case, the bald eagle on the right is now an official state park sticker for Tetigooch. The residency allowed people to vote and select, and then with the funds, the material funds, be able to order enough of these stickers. I actually was driving a few weeks back, and I saw the sticker in Brainerd, and I got really excited, and I had to remind myself not to take a picture of a stranger's car, but somebody had gotten the sticker and put it on their car. And so not only are we seeing the residency outside the geographic, but we're also now seeing Ojibwe indigenous art being celebrated so that was really exciting. Two more of the pieces that came out of it, and there was a total of 12. I'm sharing these for a particular reason. The pine marten is actually the marten is actually one of the Ojibwe clans. I actually met a marten in the park. These pieces are becoming aluminum. They have been printed on aluminum with grandfather teaching signs. These pieces were featured in a larger exhibition in August. So the students had their exhibition. We had a number of events where either it was art classes or book talks or author talks. And then while this was going on, I was creating this particular this beaver is on Baptism River. This piece is actually being donated back to the park as a permanent piece for their visitor center. It is the largest, in terms of how this residency changed my practice. This is the largest painting I've ever done. It's not a mural. It's 3 feet by 4 feet, and it'll be permanently installed in the visitor center, which is right a little bit adjacent to Baptism River. This is actually Baptism River. In talking about the wind event, there were storms on the North Shore that had taken down a lot of trees, and the beavers are a very important keystone species, had went and moved to the mouth of the Baptism River and started cleaning up all the fallen trees. And so this piece was to honor the beaver, and you'll see 7 pine trees in the background. There are 7 grandfather teachings, and the stories of these pieces were included in the exhibition in English, and some of them will be permanently installed in the park, featuring English and Ojibwe, returning Ojibwe-Moan, the language, to the park. Here was the exhibition. What was really exciting was not only just the reception and being able to showcase all the work. This past August, as we were getting towards the end of the residency, but this residency and this exhibition was titled "He Sits with Relatives." You'll see tribal members. You'll see me on the right with a couple. They were tribal members from Red Cliff who were just excited to hear about that there was an Anishinaabe Ojibwe artist working on the Lake Superior. Red Cliff is also a tribal nation that sits on Lake Superior. I got to meet with them and have that celebrate and see their excitement of our language. You'll see me on the left. That is not my little one. He's one of my favorite babies, but that's April McCormick. She is on the tribal council of the Grand Portage Band of Ojibwe. She is also the secretary of the Minnesota Chippewa tribe. She actually came with her family and her little ones to share words and to speak. And it was really powerful to see our little ones, our children, see our Ojibwe-Moan in the park. And they knew the words and they could read the signs. And she gifted her and another tribal council member from Grand Portage, Agatha Armstrong, traveled to be there to share words with the greater community and what this residency meant, not only to the North Shore and to Tetigooch, but also to the tribal communities of Minnesota. And it was a really powerful, you can see I'm looking down, I was really overwhelmed emotionally with the power of her words and her thanks for what came out of this residency. And so it was very overwhelming. And that's what I have to share with you today. So Miigwech, to the MPAiR staff, I know it's not part of my presentation, but I just want to say this opportunity really did change my life as an artist. It changed who I am as a human. And I still, to Miigwech, my greatest thanks to all the artists that I got to hang out with. Hawona, who always answered my call. It was a really powerful experience. So I look forward to continuing my relationship with Teddy, and I'll certainly be a mentor if we need mentor artists for round 2. So may you, I'm done with words today.
Hello, my name is Kris Lencowski. I'm going to share my screen here. I am the Director of Park Operations for Ramsey County Parks and Recreation. And so I come from the other side of this. Ramsey County was selected as one of the agencies to host artists at our park. And spoiler alert, it was incredible. It was a really great experience, continues to be a great experience for us, and excited to share a little bit about it with you. So, you know, art is can sometimes feel extraneous and kind of extra. Art is its most powerful when it is woven into the core of what you're trying to do. So we really combined, when looking for an artist, combined our strategic priorities, a few of them being regional park BIPOC visitation gap that we have discovered through Met Council visitor studies. There is a gap between the visitation of BIPOC residents and white counterparts, which suggests that there's something that is not welcoming or makes people feel like they don't belong in the parks. Our county has a strong racial equity commitment, and we've also been directed by board members to look at the indigenous impact and cultural history of our parks. And so we're embarking on an Indigenous cultural landscape study. So ultimately, our goal when we were trying to match with an artist was to engage and welcome Indigenous communities. And we were very fortunate to be paired with 2 artists, Marlena Miles and Tanagadan Tawin, both Dakota artists, artists and educators. And what they created was really special. What is interesting is that in my head, I had more of like, we're going to get some art object in the park. We're going to get a sculpture, or a mural or something like that. And their proposal really intrigued us, though it was more program based. And so we trusted that and went with the artist because we really, it was a really good proposal. And trusting artists and following them is always a really good tip, because it yielded some really incredible results. So one of those is a series of events to celebrate the wins of each season. So the first one was the Winter Wins celebration that we did in coordination with our winter recreation area. So we brought, we have skis, ski rentals, kick sleds, that kind of thing at Battle Creek Regional Park, and snowmaking capability there. And so we had that, and the artist brought this incredible indigenous vendor event. We brought live snow sculpting demonstrations. There were snowshoe making demonstrations, Dakota cordage crafting, storytelling, music. It was really cool. And when we had started out working on our Battle Creek master plan, we found Battle Creek, the name of it comes from an indigenous battle, a historic battle. But when we did our master plan, we struggled to reach out to indigenous community members, leaders, and the difference between that, just trying to get like attention and interest in our long range plan, and this event, which just brought a huge swath of many different indigenous people from indigenous communities into the park. It was huge. That's a demographic we had really struggled to welcome and bring into the park and help create a feeling of belonging. And this first event just blew my mind. There were hundreds of people there. It was extremely successful. Really beautiful, fun. Since then, we've had events throughout the year, and just really, it's hard to explain, like the going from like 0 to 60. The artist brought so much cool activities, things to do. They brought out a demographic that we had struggled to reach, and overall, just all these events have been really successful. One story that I'll share with you is that we were doing a water walk on one of them, and it's where we walk in silence and carry water along the river. And there were about 100 people. We were walking along, somebody was mowing their lawn and just kind of stopped and like had a moment of reverence because it was clear that like something important was happening. So some really beautiful things. At this event, I got to eat some bison stew that a young man had taken part of a ceremony to prepare the buffalo and butcher it and get it ready for consumption and stuff. So that was really cool. But then as we were kind of walking around the park and dreaming about what this residency might be, my sort of dream of having something more physical in the park was realized because we were walking by an old playground container. We had moved the playground to a different location in the park, and this old playground container was there. And, from the parks agency perspective, it's like, we got to find some money to, tear up and demolish this playground container that isn't useful anymore. And they looked at it and said, can we build an indigenous garden here? We want to do classes here. We want to build a sustainable garden. And so they built this beautiful like willow dome. We worked together and got some stumps for seeding, and then they're starting to plant. And they did a like free library for seeds. And then they erected a teepee. And Marlena went and took a picture of the teepee during the Northern Lights, which is gorgeous. I mean, it just really incredible. And Marlena said something really profound, which is, when is the last time that a teepee, ooh, I get actually a little choked up when I say this, but when is the last time a teepee was on this land? And that's pretty profound. That's more than just we're running programs or putting a piece of art in the parks, right? So some takeaways for us. We get extra energy and resources for our strategic priorities. I don't know a single park agency that doesn't need more resources to help reach their strategic priorities. Empowering community. More than just welcoming community in, we really empowered the artists and they felt empowered. And as a result, community came in and we built relationships, which is huge. Creating a sense of belonging. And that's that next step of feeling like this is my place. Learning and capacity building for staff. I learned a huge amount during this. I know my staff has really enjoyed the process and learned a lot. And then joy, right? Like that's what parks are all about. Coming to the park, enjoying the experience, and having an exceptional experience that is beyond what we normally would in a park. This is a fantastic use of legacy funds. I really hope it continues. Kudos to Amanda Lovely, who originated the project, to the Forecast Public Art, Met Council, Greater Regional Parks, DNR for all participating. Like I say, when we combine the work that we are doing with art, something really incredible is able to happen. So thank you all for listening, and looking forward to discussing more in the panel.
Okay.
My name is Lindsay Buck, and I was one of the artists working in Greater Minnesota. So I spent my year embedded at 2 regional parks in central Minnesota, Robert Nye Regional Park, as well in Wright County, as well as 2 inlets, Epidehehaka, Omashku Zaga Igans Regional Park in Sherburne County. Before I get started talking about my project, I want to give some acknowledgements to some people who made my particular project possible. In addition to the park staff and project sponsors who were all wonderful, I want to give a special acknowledgement to the artist Arabella Howell. She designed the Dakota logo that became the kind of logo for my entire project, as well as the graphics that we included in the mobile phone app. I also want to thank the knowledge holders who gave their time and expertise to advise on the cultural and language components of this project. This includes representatives from the Upper and Lower Sioux communities, as well as the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe. And this project would not have been possible without their guidance. So my goal for the residency was to find a project that could connect both of my parks within a single project that highlights the continued cultural significance of the central Minnesota, and in particularly the Minnesota River Corridor area. As you see on the map, I have marked 2 Inlets Park is here on the north side of the Mississippi River, and Robert Nye to the south. And they encompass a wide variety of ecosystems and plant communities. By approaching the project from this perspective, it highlights and builds upon the existing partnerships between tribal governments and Sherburne County that have formed during the development of the new park at 2 Inlets. And this perspective emphasizes that the significance of this landscape goes beyond park boundaries and encompasses the entire region. We developed an interpretive trail that explores how we can challenge the Eurocentric standard of park interpretation, which sometimes will include a park image or a plant image with a botanical name. And instead, we wanted to celebrate the relationships and connections that these plants have with the landscape. I wanted to find a way to weave together the complex historical, cultural, and environmental narratives of the landscape by presenting the stories of the plants, animals, and people that call it home. And this is important because how we learn about landscape often determines our future relationship with it. So here's an example of the signage at Robert Nye Park. And here's the example of the signage at 2 Inlets. And one of the challenges we had was there's obviously a lot of information when you're talking about all these different relationships, and we didn't want to have large billboard signage throughout the parks. We wanted the visual experience of the landscape to remain the primary experience. So what we did was we created small signs that kind of give hints with the plant images and the names of the plants in Dakota, Ojibwe, English, and the botanical names. But when you scan the QR code, it takes you to a mobile phone app in which you can really start to engage with these different relationships. This digital format was a new format for me as an artist, as well as for the park systems that I was working with. And here you can see some screenshots of the mobile phone app. Once you're there in the app, you can explore some regional and park trail maps. You can scan the QR codes from the signs to access plant profiles. And while you're here, you can learn about how the language, what the languages tell us about the relationships with these plants. It talks about the botanical gifts that these plants offer, and it highlights some of the important land connections that these plants have with both animals and people. The app also has a number of games that park visitors can explore and play to kind of deepen their understanding of these concepts. Here's a picture of the trailhead signage at each park. At the trailhead sign, there's instructions for how you can download the app, as well as a map that shows where some of these interpretive signs are displayed along the trail. And really, the true importance of this project was about building relationships between parks and tribal nations and finding ways to elevate Indigenous language, perspectives, and the work of contemporary Indigenous artists. As a non-native artist myself, I had a vision of how we could rethink park interpretation and programming, but I really relied on Dakota and Ojibwe knowledge holders and artists to guide the direction and content. It was a learning process for me. I was hesitant to tackle the issue I wasn't always certain about my process or how effective the final project would be. But as some of the sentiment from the other presenters is a similar sentiment, I think something that really touched me is we were wrapping up one of our app launch events in which we had a number of presenters and artists and demonstrators. And one of the demonstrators said to me, you know, when I was a child, I didn't really feel welcome in parks, but this is exactly what needs to happen for Native people to be invited into these projects and spaces to share their stories, their perspectives, and their art, and to start conversations about how we can work together. This is the start of healing and repairing relationships. And so my hope is that my project can be a starting point for opening discussions about finding further opportunities and direction for partnerships that will honor Native voices and issues within the landscape. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Those were so moving, and it was so nice to really get time to dive deep with all of our presenters. I'm going to invite all of our presenters back. If you could bring your video back, and also Renee as our core team spokesperson, because we're going to move into a little question and answer section here with a panel of speakers. So if there's a Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, it's a little box with a question mark in it. If you would submit any questions that you have through that box, we will ask them to our panelists here. And while you're taking some time to think about your questions, I'm going to kick us off with just one question for the group. And that question is, can you all recall an experience in this process and project that really surprised you? And anybody can chime in.
I mean, kind of like I said in my presentation, the surprise was just, you know, I can't tell you how many, you know, emails, phone calls we made trying to connect with Indigenous communities, and then here it was, like hundreds of people, like just really incredible. And then of course it's grown so that it's this isn't just an event like for you know, people of Indigenous backgrounds. This is, you know, lots of different people are joining these events. So that's definitely been just a really pleasant surprise.
I think a surprise for me would be just how beneficial it was as an artist to have the time and space to think and engage with the park and build these relationships, because in doing so, my project changed so much from what I would have envisioned to the end, and for the better, because it ended up just being such a collaborative experience.
I was constantly surprised by nature. Our family has been to all of the state parks in Minnesota, and Lake Bemidji State Park was always one of our favorites. But so often the nature would surprise us. You know, we
found bugs on the snow and found out that that's totally normal.
Yeah, like the wingless crane flies just hang out on top of the snow. It was like -15 that day, and I see this little insect walking across the snow.
And you never would have found that without this artist opportunity that actually embedded us into nature.
Yeah, by staying there and having to walk back and forth to the visitor center every night, we went, oh, what are you? And then we also got to see, you know, firsthand some of the insects that have a symbiotic relationship inside of pitcher plants, that they're actually insects that live inside of those. And we got to see them swimming around and
then point them out to people.
Yeah, it's just super surprising to all the things that we learned about the natural world.
What I think I found surprising was the openness of sharing stories with me, because I was an artist. I wasn't a DNR person. I wasn't a state person, especially some of the elders, and also those who visited, like regular visit visitors of Tetigouge who've been coming for years were able to talk about how the park has changed and what it means to them. And that was just really powerful. It was surprising their openness there to share that.
Renee, do you want to chime in?
I was surprised by the projects that each of the 12 artists worked on. You come into something, I think, as a non-artist, and you have an idea of what public art looks like, and it was not what I expected in so many wonderful ways. The learning about the projects has been a highlight of the past year and broadening my horizons, particularly. I think I've really grown and gained a little bit more understanding. I'll never truly have the knowledge that artists, each of you have, but if I could take that perspective away, thinking that I knew what we were coming into and what this was going to be, I think of how much this probably just blew the minds of people that got to participate in all your wonderful community outreach, because it was really, I think, truly special for everyone who was able to attend and participate. It's been amazing. Thank you all for everything that you did with this project.
We have a question from Courtney, which is about kind of looking to the future. And I'm just adding a caveat that, this project is, the pilot's coming to a close, but still we can think about, what might happen in the future. So Courtney asks, looking ahead, what might continuation or expansion look like for your specific projects? For example, Lindsay, could Heart and Land be created for additional parks? And for our sticker creators, where might others go to obtain or purchase your work? So maybe Lindsay, and then Monica and Nicole, and then anyone else.
Sure. I think that definitely it's something that could be expanded to other parks. And I think this is one thing that I also realized during the course of my project is that parks are they're in such a unique position to give these perspectives, because parks are everywhere across the state. And so often, sometimes cultural interpretation opportunities are not. Maybe they're centered, in urban areas or otherwise. But so I think that parks are in a really unique position to be a conduit for this.
Yes, so the stickers we created were maybe limited edition stickers, but some of them are still available at the park, in the ranger station. However, the state park, the folks who work there have all the sticker designs and the temporary tattoo designs, so they could use those however they wanted to for in the future for creating those designs for sale within the visitor center.
So that could be a continuation that the park is much more in charge of than we would be. We passed on the art and the information that we gained from going into those schools. We'll see what happens next.
I'm going to ask a question from Jen.
Oh, can I chime in on that one?
Yeah, go ahead, Kris.
Sorry. We were so impressed with the work of the artists, and we were like, we only get a year of this. That's not enough. So we actually applied for an LCCMR grant and got it. So we'll be recommended to the legislature for it. And we will be continuing our work with the artists, continuing that series, expanding the plant walks and classes and whatnot. And they're going to actually develop signage for us in the park, like nature interpretive signage. And that signage is going to be open source, so any park agency can use it after it's developed. Sorry, thanks for letting me jump in.
Can I just jump in real quick? I just wanted to speak to something that was asked. Similar to what Nicole and Monica shared, the the DNR team has the images, the files that were used for the stickers so they can continue on. We were very thoughtful with our inventory order, as we did have material funds allocated as a part of this, was to over order, so that we could use it not only for different events, but we could also, they could become part of the inventory of the gift shop as a income generator or source generator for their programs. The other piece is, could this project be expanded? I went into the residency knowing that for me, I would like the residency continue. So I'm going to continue with events with Tadeguch into after the residency is over into spring of 26. The only thing that's different is that the funding isn't there. But the relationship is there. And that's what I feel is most important, that we're going to continue to work together to benefit the community.
So I'm going to lump two questions together, which the category of the questions is really about the process, and it's more geared towards our artists here. So how many of you had your projects change from the application that you submitted? So think back all the way to the beginning. And how did that change kind of based on the people that you engaged with, the whole process and the different needs of stakeholders? And then the question I'm kind of lumping into that was a question, Lindsay, about the app. And if you made it or you worked with other people. So just thinking about the process of kind of beginning to end and how things may have changed.
Yeah, I can answer the question quickly regarding the app. So I did work with an app developer who's based in Duluth, Minnesota. And this was because this is such a new format for me. So I really relied on their expertise and used some of my material funding to help pay for that consultation. And then as far as the process goes, one of the other really beautiful things about this program is that when we applied, we didn't really have to have a proposal. We could, but we didn't have to. We really were allowed. I took about 3 months of the first 3 months of my time period to really just engage with the parks, talk with the park staff. What are the needs? Explore the parks, really be embedded. And I think that was a really key to a successful outcome.
Yeah, that was the same for us as well. We did not we didn't propose a project with our application. We typically do a lot of community-based art and interactive public art and workshops, and we both have education backgrounds teaching. And so we were able to work with the park when we got connected with them.
And hear more about what specifically it was that they were looking for, especially in that sense of belonging, and then create our plan based on those conversations, which to me was part of the whole point of MNPAiR.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that really did guide us. The park really wanted to see more people from Bemidji coming to the park. Like Bemidji State Park is a very popular park, especially for people from the cities, and getting people, from Bemidji who've lived there their whole lives and have never been to the park into the park. So that was one of our main focuses, and that's why we worked so much with getting connections and doing workshops even outside of the park to get more people in and to, reduce that barrier. Other artists have mentioned this too. There are sometimes barriers to parks. Bemidji is there's like a triangle around Bemidji of reservations, and getting connected to the park and making sure people feel welcome in the park was a huge goal, right? And so that's what we tried to do is do projects throughout the year that encourage people who hadn't been to the park yet or who didn't regularly come to the park to come into the park. So that was really cool to be able to work on the park's goals and to help them solve those problems that they're having.
Okay, Amanda, I think we've got time for one final question, which is, what is something you might have changed, or what would you do differently in the future? If maybe everyone could just say one thing.
A lot of silence because I think a lot of projects went really well. It's hard to say. I mean, the only, like I say, the only thing is it just would be great to have even more time, right? Like even more depth, even, continue out the work that was happening. It's not a regret per se, but something to, yeah, look forward to in future iterations of this program.
Yeah,
Um,
oh, go ahead, Sam.
Oh, Migos, thanks. Something that kind of ties into the question that Mark threw in. I'm not a plain air artist. Like I don't create outside. I get inspired by the creator and nature. She is, they are, and I'll sketch, but like the idea of doing art in 92-degree humidity on the shore is not really enticing. And so I think that's one thing where I had to move outside of my comfort to be producing and creating and working outside. And that was tricky for me. I'm more comfortable, but that was something that I had to learn and be flexible.
Yeah, I know the other artists have talked about this too, but we're also still working with Bemidji. We have a program already scheduled for January, so just more time.
More time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would second or third that more time would have been an increased luxury, especially when you're working on, building relationships with people. It's hard to force that into a time period. And of course, having those relationships, can go forward now, but having more time to do it initially would have also been beneficial.
And then Renee, if you want to add, what might you do differently?
As much as I did get out to the parks to see what was going on, I'm based in Duluth. Our parks were in greater Minnesota, so all over the place. I would have really, I think, made more of an effort to get out to see what was happening more often, because every time I went and saw someone experiencing it, it made me smile. And I had as much fun as everybody else doing what they were doing, just watching the smiles and the participation from everybody. So I would have definitely, in hindsight, spent a lot more time driving around to see what was happening in the parks. Rather than seeing things more towards the end, I would have gone to a lot more of those workshops than I was able to get to, because that's where the fun was.
Thank you to our presenters for sharing the wonderful work, which really was the core of MNPAiR. It's been an amazing process and experience for all of us. We have just a few minutes left. I want to invite Renee, Ellie, Lars, and Jen Krava in. We just have a few words of thanks that we want to share with a lot of the folks who made MNPAiR possible. So I'm going to start with Jen.
Thank you, Mallory. I just need to pull my notes up here quick. Sorry. Thank you, everyone, for all of your amazing presentations. It's just so wonderful to hear you talk about the work that you have done. I also just want to thank all of the host sites and every single artist that took part in this. It was a one-of-a-kind pilot program, so thank you for trusting our core team and the artists and the everyone who's working on this. Thanks to the core team for stewarding this first iteration of MNPAiR. I want to thank everyone who is attending this webinar. You are showing that you're interested in how art and parks can collaborate, so thanks for that. I'd like to say thank you to the voters of Minnesota for prioritizing projects like these and voting for the Legacy Amendment, which made this possible. And then thank you to the Legacy Advisory Committee for supporting this project as well.
Thanks, Jen. I'm next up. You stole the voters from me, so I'll go on to something else. But without the voters of Minnesota deciding back in a pretty tough time in 2008 that they were going to tax themselves, we wouldn't be here doing this project today. But thanks to everybody who participated. It's been terrific to be a part of. Forecast has done a great job shepherding us through the process as we wrapped our arms around what was happening with this and gaining the understanding of how successful this would be. So thanks to my counterparts at DNR and Metropolitan Council, our commissioners, and certainly Forecast for everything that you did for us. It's much appreciated.
Lars?
I just mainly wanted to think it's kind of amazing. There's a lot to be grateful for, a lot of gratitude to go around, but the Minnesota arts community is amazing. And especially the artists who stepped forward and participated in this program. But I really want to give extra thanks to the host parks because they kind of took a risk in participating in a pilot program with the end outcomes unknown. There were a lot of anticipated unknowns in a pilot program like this, and there were also some extra unanticipated unknowns. And we kind of worked through those things to come out with a pretty solid outcome and something to build on in the future. So I want to really thank the host park and the staff at each of the host parks to participate.
Yeah, thanks, Lars. Similarly, I want to thank all the artists who are a part of this and even the artists who applied. Taking a risk on a pilot project like this is really exciting to see that there was so much energy for it. A big thanks to the host sites and then our wonderful forecast collaborators. You all really held this project in a way that was absolutely beautiful. So appreciative for that. To Luisa and Lars and Renee, it was great to get to have such a wonderfully supportive core team. And a shout out as well to Amanda Lovely, who was one of the core team members before her departure from the Met Council. So thanks to her. And then thanks to everyone at the Met Council who really has helped support artist work and just growing the capacity of having more art at the council. So really appreciative for everyone who's been involved in that.
I'm just going to pull up a slide quick in case if anyone would like more information. You can get in touch with us. Our email addresses are here on the screen. Lars, again, is with the DNR. Ellie is with Met Council. I'm with Forecast, and Renee is with the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission. So please reach out if you've got questions about MNPAiR or how you might be able to work with an artist in your own park or any other, governmental entity that you might work for. We will share these out with you as well. So if you can't capture them in this moment, that's okay. You'll get them.
And we have a final activity for everyone who is tuning in right now. If you would indulge us in that, Jen's going to put up a QR code. And I'm also going to put a link in the chat. So this is an invitation to think about how we might share MNPAiR out with other people in our lives. So the question I want you all to think about is, when you tell a colleague about MNPAiR tomorrow, because of course you're all going to do that, what is one word or phrase that you will use to describe it? What's kind of the one thing coming up for you right now about this program? And I can see folks are already filling it out. Jen, if you take down your slides, I will share the word cloud as it's coming up. Let's see. Here we go. So we're seeing here transformative, inspiring, welcoming, which connects to belonging, that central focus. Beautiful. I think that's also a great word we haven't heard a lot, but just how beautiful the work is, how beautiful the connections are. Powerful. Inspiring. When I think about inspiring also, I think about ripple effects. Healing. I think that's also a beautiful word, especially with the examples we had today. Just even hearing from our speakers about their own experiences of healing and the healing they witnessed in visitors. Innovative. Yeah, I think that's definitely part of a pilot, right? We're trying something that really hasn't quite happened in this way before. Partnerships, definitely so central to this pilot. I'm sure everyone who spoke today can really attest to how central that collaboration is in this kind of embedded, deep relationship. So this is just giving you a sense of kind of what everyone is taking away today from all of the stories that we heard, from this really amazing opportunity to try something new, to participate in the MNPAiR pilot. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Jen, I'm going to hand it to you to take us out.
Thank you, Mallory, so much. And thank you again to everyone who is here with us today. We really appreciate your interest in this project. We appreciate your interest in, excuse me, in art and parks. We, again, will share this recording out to everyone so that you've got it and you can take a look at it, and all of our contact information is there. As Anne mentioned earlier, we're working on a final report about the project that includes some of that evaluation that Anne has been doing, and we'll share that out with you as well. But just a final thank you for joining us and for exploring how art and parks can broaden who's enjoying our incredible natural resources in the state of Minnesota. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon.